Your shed is on my property. I'm having it torn down next Tuesday. The woman standing by my fence wore a cream-colored business suit with gold buttons, her chestnut hair pulled back in a painful ponytail. Excuse me? I put down my trowel, dirt still clinging to my hands. Jennifer Holbrook. I just moved next door. She gestured vaguely toward the modern monstrosity that had gone up 6 weeks ago, all glass and angular, out of place among the artisan homes on this street in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I had the property surveyed. That structure, she pointed to my tool shed, is 12 feet above the boundary. It needs to come down. That shed's been there for 20 years, I said carefully. My aunt built it when she bought this house. Well, Jennifer's smile was razor thin. Your aunt was mistaken. I have documentation. You'll be hearing from my attorney by Friday. She turned and walked away, heels clicking on the flagstone path, leaving me standing there with dirt under my nails and a cold weight settling in my stomach. That was 3 months ago. I'm Ryan Mitchell, 34 years old, software engineer working remotely for a fintech startup called Quantum Path Solutions based in Charlotte. I write code that handles cryptocurrency transactions, the kind of work where one misplaced decimal point can cost someone 7 figures. I'd been doing it from a cramped apartment in Raleigh for 5 years, living alone with my servers and my mechanical keyboard collection, eating takeout and wondering if this was really what adult life was supposed to look like. Then Aunt Caroline died. She was 76, lung cancer, diagnosed too late, gone too fast. I'd visited her twice in the hospital. The second time, she'd gripped my hand with surprising strength and said, "The house is yours, Ryan. Take care of it. It's got good bones." I'd nodded, not really processing what she meant. The house was just a house, wasn't it? But after the funeral, after the will reading, after I'd driven back to my sterile apartment and sat there in the silence, I realized she'd given me something more than property. She'd given me a chance to start over, to live somewhere with history and character, to stop existing in a holding pattern and actually build a life. So I gave notice at my apartment, packed my entire existence into a U-Haul, and drove 3 hours west to Chapel Hill on a Saturday morning in September 2024. The house sat at the end of Oakwood Lane, a quiet street lined with mature trees and homes, built between 1,920 and 1,950. Caroline's place was a craftsman-style beauty, original hardwood floors that creaked in exactly the right places, crown molding she'd restored herself, a wraparound porch with a swing where I'd spent countless summer afternoons as a kid. The lot was oddly shaped, triangular, wrapping around a small rise that backed onto a wooded ravine. According to the original plat from 1992, it was 87 acres bigger than the neighboring properties, but irregular. The survey showed clear boundaries marked by the original fence posts Caroline's husband Jack had installed before I was born. Nobody had questioned those boundaries in 32 years. I spent the first month settling in, fixed the leaky faucet in the kitchen, sanded and refinished the porch swing, repainted the shutters, a deep forest green that matched Caroline's original choice. I set up my workstation in what used to be her craft room, 3 monitors, ergonomic chair, standing desk converter. My boss didn't care where I worked as long as the code shipped on time and the security audits passed. So I worked from the porch when the weather was nice, from the craft room turned office when it rained, and fell into an easy rhythm of morning coffee, afternoon coding, evening walks through the neighborhood. The neighbors were friendly in that polite southern way. Mrs. Kimura from across the street brought me a casserole and told me Caroline had been a blessing to the neighborhood. The Hendersons' next-door elderly couple, maybe 80, waved from their garden and invited me to their church potluck. I'd wave back, decline politely, and think, this is nice, this is peaceful, this is exactly what I needed. For 2 months, life was perfect. Then Jennifer Holbrook moved in. The house next to mine had been vacant for 8 months after old Mr. Patterson died. It was a modest ranch from the 1,970 nothing special, sitting on a half-acre rectangular lot that bordered mine along the eastern fence line. The for sale sign came down in November. A week later, the demolition crew showed up. I watched from my kitchen window as they tore down Mr. Patterson's house in 2 days, just gone, bulldozed into a dumpster. The lot scraped clean. Then the construction began. What rose in its place over the next 6 weeks was jarring. A contemporary box, all sharp angles, floor-to-ceiling windows, flat roof, standing out among the craftsmen and ranches like a glass spaceship that had crash-landed in suburbia. Modern, expensive, completely out of place. I told myself it wasn't my business. People can build what they want. But then I met Jennifer. Moving day was a Saturday in late December. I was on my front porch replacing a rotten board when a white Mercedes SUV pulled into her driveway. The woman who emerged looked like she'd stepped out of a real estate magazine spread. Auburn hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. Cream-colored business suit with gold buttons that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Designer sunglasses perched on her head. A leather portfolio under one arm. She surveyed her property like a general inspecting troops, then turned and walked directly toward my fence. "You must be the nephew," she called out, not bothering with pleasantries. "Caroline's heir." I set down my hammer. Ryan Mitchell. Jennifer Holbrook. She didn't offer her hand. "I've been reviewing the property lines. Your lot is unusual." Red flag number 1. Nobody opens with property lines unless they're planning something. "It's grandfathered in," I said carefully. "Pre-zoning irregularity from the early 90s. She pulled out a folded paper from her portfolio, a printout of what looked like a satellite image with lines drawn over it. "Have you verified the boundaries recently? I have the original survey from Caroline's purchase and an updated copy from when I inherited." "Why?" "Just making sure." Her smile was thin, calculated. "I'm in commercial real estate. I notice these things. Your fence line seems approximate. It's been there since 1992. Things shift. Land settles. Technology improves." She tucked the paper away. "I'll be commissioning my own survey soon, just so we're all on the same page." She walked away before I could respond, heels clicking on her pristine concrete driveway. I stood there, hammer in hand, feeling something cold settle in my gut. That night, I pulled out Caroline's property documents. Everything was in order. Clear boundaries. No easements. No disputes. In 32 years. But Jennifer's tone had been too confident. Too certain. Like she already knew something I didn't. The first marker appeared 3 days later. I was carrying groceries from my car when I noticed it, a bright pink flag tied to a wooden stake, planted at the base of one of my oak trees, about 15 feet from the fence line. Then another, this one near my garden shed. A third by the fire pit I'd rebuilt in October. All of them on my property. All of them marked with Jennifer's initials in black Sharpie, J.H. I walked the perimeter. Found 7 stakes total, creating a line that cut through my yard like she was carving off a piece of it. I took photos. Then I walked next door and knocked. Jennifer answered in yoga pants and a cashmere sweater, holding a wine glass. "Ryan, what can I do for you?" "The stakes on my property. What are they for?" "Preliminary survey markers. My team will be out next week to do the official measurements. Your team doesn't have permission to be on my land." "Well?" Her smile never wavered. "That depends on where the actual property line is, doesn't it? I'm just being thorough. I'm sure you understand." "I understand you're trespassing." "Am I?" She tilted her head. "Or am I clarifying a boundary that should have been corrected years ago?" I wanted to argue, wanted to grab those stakes and throw them back onto her perfect lawn. Instead, I turned and walked away, already pulling out my phone to call a lawyer. That's when I knew. This wasn't confusion. This was strategy. And Jennifer Holbrook was just getting started. The surveyor's name was Marcus Delaney. Mid-50s, slicked back gray hair, expensive boots. He showed up with a 2-person crew and spent an entire day planting markers, taking measurements, and occasionally glancing at Jennifer like he was waiting for approval. I stood on my porch watching, coffee going cold in my hand. My own attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen who specialized in property law, had reviewed my documents. "You're fine," she'd said. "Caroline's deed is solid. The plat's been on file since 1992. Unless this guy finds something genuinely wrong with the county records, you've got nothing to worry about." But when Delaney's report came back, it was a masterpiece of creative geometry. According to him, the original survey had miscalculated the angle of the rear property line by 3 degrees. When corrected, my lot lost nearly 800 square feet, including my shed, half my garden, and the stone patio I'd rebuilt last spring. Patricia read it twice, then set it down and poured herself whiskey from my bar cart. "This is garbage," she said flatly, "but it's professionally produced garbage. He's using selective historical data and ignoring the county's GPS benchmarks. Can we fight it?" "Absolutely, but it'll cost you." "And Ryan?" She looked at me seriously. This woman isn't just confused. She's strategic. This is a land grab. I didn't want to believe her. I wanted to believe Jennifer was just a new neighbor who'd made an honest mistake. But then the letters started coming. First, a cease and desist, demanding I stop using her shed. Second, a notice that she was filing for adverse possession of the disputed area, claiming I'd been knowingly trespassing for months. Third, an invoice, $4,500 for surveying costs and legal consultation fees incurred due to boundary clarification necessitated by your refusal to cooperate. That one I threw in the trash. By week 6, Jennifer had installed a temporary fence bright orange construction barrier right through my garden, tomatoes on one side, peppers on the other, like she'd split custody in a divorce. Neighbors started talking. I'd catch whispers at the coffee shop. "Did you hear about Ryan and that Holbrook woman? Isn't she the one trying to take his shed?" I hired my own surveyor. Linda Kowalski, 62, no nonsense, came recommended by Patricia. She'd worked for the county for 20 years before going private. Linda spent 3 days on the property. She pulled original plat maps, compared them to modern GPS data, cross-referenced aerial photos going back to 1985. When she finished, she sat me down at my kitchen table with a beer and a satisfied smile. "Your aunt's property line is exactly where you think it is," she said. "Delaney's report is bullshit. He's using an outdated baseline and cherry-picking data points. I'm submitting my findings to the county and copying the state licensing board. Will that stop her?" Linda's smile faded. "Legally? Yes. Practically? People like Jennifer don't stop. They escalate." She was right. 2 days after Linda submitted her report, I came home to find my shed vandalized. The door had been pried open, tools scattered across the ground. Nothing stolen, just destroyed. Methodical, malicious. I called the sheriff. They took a report. Told me to install cameras. I installed 6. The next week, Jennifer filed a lawsuit. Not just for the property line she was suing me, for intentional infliction of emotional distress, claiming my harassment and refusal to acknowledge proper boundaries had caused her anxiety, requiring therapy. The claim was absurd, but it was also expensive. Each motion, each filing, each court appearance cost me money I didn't have budgeted. Jennifer, meanwhile, seemed to have unlimited resources. Patricia was blunt. "She's trying to bleed you dry. This is a war of attrition. So what do I do?" "We fight. But Ryan, you need to understand she's connected. I've been asking around. Jennifer sits on the board of the local homeowners association coalition. She's got friends in zoning, planning, real estate law. This isn't just about your shed anymore. She wants your land, and she's got the network to make your life hell until you give up." I didn't sleep much after that conversation, but I also didn't give up. I started documenting everything. Every letter, every email, every time Jennifer's crew stepped foot on my property. I backed it all up to 3 separate cloud drives. I joined the neighborhood Facebook group and quietly asked if anyone else had dealt with Jennifer. The responses came in privately, cautiously. "She threatened to sue us over our fence last year." She tried to claim our driveway easement belonged to her. She's a nightmare, but she's got money and lawyers. Most people just settle. Most people. But I wasn't most people. I'd spent 3 years in a job where my code either worked or cost the company millions. I'd learned to debug complex systems, find the flaws, exploit the weaknesses. Jennifer Holbrook was a system, and every system has a breaking point. The breaking point came faster than I expected. It started with a knock on my door at 6:47 a.m. on a Thursday. I opened it to find 2 men in county uniforms and a woman in a business suit holding a clipboard. "Ryan Mitchell?" the woman asked. "Yeah. I'm Sandra Marsh, Chapel Hill Code Enforcement. We've received complaints about unpermitted structures on your property. I need to conduct an inspection." My brain, still foggy with sleep, tried to process this. "What structures?" She consulted her clipboard. "The detached shed, the stone patio, and the raised garden beds. According to our records, none of these have building permits on file. They're all grandfathered in. They were here when I inherited the property. That's what we're here to verify. May we proceed?" I let them in because refusing would have made things worse. They spent 2 hours measuring, photographing, taking notes. Sandra barely spoke except to ask technical questions. When they finished, she handed me a yellow violation notice. "You have 30 days to provide documentation proving these structures were permitted, or they'll be classified as code violations, subject to daily fines of $250. "Who filed the complaint?" She hesitated. The complainant requested anonymity, but it came through the HOA Oversight Committee. "Jennifer." I called Patricia immediately. She was furious. "This is harassment by proxy. She's weaponizing code enforcement. Can they actually do this? They can investigate. But those structures predate current permit requirements. I'll file an exemption request, but Ryan, this is going to cost you more money, more time, more stress." "That's the point, isn't it? She's trying to break me financially." Patricia didn't answer, which was answer enough. The next blow landed 3 days later. A letter from my homeowner's insurance company. "Dear Mr. Due to ongoing property disputes and pending litigation, we regret to inform you that your policy will not be renewed upon expiration. Additionally, any claims related to the disputed structures or property boundaries are excluded from coverage effective immediately." I read it 3 times, feeling my chest tighten. No insurance meant I was personally liable for everything. If Jennifer's lawsuit succeeded, if the code enforcement fine stuck, if anything else went wrong, I'd be on the hook, completely exposed. But it got worse. That afternoon, my bank called. My business line of credit, $25,000 I'd maintained for equipment upgrades and emergency cash flow, was being recalled due to increased risk profile associated with pending litigation. The loan officer, a guy named Derek, who'd approved the line 6 months ago, sounded genuinely apologetic. "Ryan, I'm sorry. It's automated. The system flagged your account when the lawsuit filing hit public records. Corporate policy on unsecured debt. I've never missed a payment. I know, but the algorithm doesn't care. You've got 30 days to repay the outstanding balance, or we move to collections." Outstanding balance, $18,000. I'd used it to replace my HVAC system in August. I hung up and stared at my kitchen wall doing math I didn't want to do. Legal fees to date, $22,000. Patricia had been working at a reduced rate, but trial preparation would add at least another $15,000. Code enforcement potential fines if I couldn't document the shed, $7,500 for 30 days. Jennifer's lawsuit damages if I lost, estimated $40,000 plus her legal costs. Bank recall, $18,000 due in 30 days. Total exposure, over $100,000. My annual salary, $78,000. My savings, $11,000. I was mathematically fucked. I called Patricia again. Her voice was careful, measured, the way people sound when they're delivering bad news. Ryan, I need to be straight with you. Jennifer's legal team just filed a motion for summary judgment. They're arguing that because you've continued using the disputed area despite their warnings, you're acting in bad faith. They want the judge to rule in their favor without a trial. Can they do that? It's a long shot, but if the judge agrees, you'd lose the shed, the patio, everything in the disputed zone, and you'd be liable for their legal costs $40,000 minimum. Plus, statutory damages for willful trespass. We're potentially looking at $60,000 total. The room tilted, $60,000 minimum. Ryan, I'm not trying to scare you, but you need to consider settlement. Jennifer's attorney reached out this morning. They're offering to drop everything if you sign over the disputed land and pay $15,000 in good faith compensation. It's extortion, but it's $45,000 less than what you'll pay if you lose in court. And if I refuse? Long pause. Then we go to trial. And honestly, her team is good. They've got expert witnesses, they've got Delaney's survey, they've got the code violations, the insurance issue. They're building a narrative that you're a stubborn new owner who doesn't respect property law. Judges in this county tend to favor established residents over newcomers. She's only been here 4 months longer than me, but she's connected. She sits on the HOA oversight committee. She's donated to Judge Tomlinson's last campaign. She knows the county attorney personally. Ryan, I'll fight for you as hard as I can, but I need you to understand the reality. You might lose. And if you lose, you don't just lose the shed. The legal fees alone could force you to sell the house. My throat closed. Sell Caroline's house. I'm sorry, but yes. After we hung up, I sat at Caroline's kitchen table for a long time. The same oak table where I'd eaten Sunday dinners as a kid. Where she'd taught me to play chess and told me stories about buying this property in 1991 when nobody wanted an oddly shaped lot. She'd been a middle school art teacher, saved for 15 years to afford this place, lived here alone after Uncle Jack died, maintaining every inch of it with stubborn pride. And now I was going to lose it to a predatory real estate vulture because I couldn't afford to fight. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Clock's ticking, Ryan. Settlement offer expires Monday 5 p.m. After that, we take everything. We're also filing liens against the property for unpaid survey costs and legal fees. Your equity will be frozen. You won't be able to sell or refinance. Think carefully. J.H. Jennifer. Texting me directly now. Confident. Smug. She knew she had me cornered. I poured a whiskey I didn't want and stood on the back porch watching the sun set over the ravine. The shed sat there in the golden light, solid, familiar, full of Caroline's tools. The garden beds she'd built with her own hands. The patio where she'd hosted neighborhood barbecues. All of it about to be ripped away. That night, I did something I hadn't done since Caroline's funeral. I cried. Not quiet tears. Full, ugly, choking sobs in the darkness of a house that was supposed to be my inheritance, my fresh start, my connection to the woman who'd helped raise me. I'd failed her. I'd failed myself. The next morning, I called my boss and asked for a salary advance. He was sympathetic but firm. Company policy didn't allow it. He could offer me additional project work, but payment wouldn't come for 60 days. I called my parents. They offered to help, but they'd just taken out a loan to cover my dad's medical bills from his heart surgery. They could maybe scrape together $3,000 by next month. It wasn't enough. I looked into second mortgages. Couldn't qualify without stable insurance. Personal loans. Denied due to pending litigation. Credit cards. Maxed out. Every door I tried was locked. Friday afternoon, Jennifer's attorney sent another email. This one included photographs, aerial drone shots of my property with the disputed zone highlighted in red. My shed, my patio, my garden, all marked for confiscation. The subject line, final notice, settlement expires 5 p.m. Monday or we proceed with full enforcement. Saturday morning, I woke up to find my front yard vandalized. Someone had spray painted trespasser across my driveway in red paint. The cameras caught nothing. Whoever did it knew exactly where the blind spots were. I scrubbed at the paint for 2 hours. It wouldn't come off completely. A ghost image remained visible every time I pulled into my own driveway. Sunday, I drafted the settlement agreement. Signed over 800 square feet of land that had been in my family for 32 years. Agreed to pay $15,000 I didn't have. Acknowledged that all claims against Jennifer were without merit. I stared at the document for 3 hours, pen in hand. This was it. The moment I gave up. The moment I let a bully win because I couldn't afford to fight. The moment I lost Caroline's house without actually losing. It kept the structure but surrendered its soul. I thought about calling Patricia to arrange signing. My finger hovered over her number. Then I thought about Caroline. She'd been a fighter. Raised 2 kids on a teacher's salary after Jack died. Survived breast cancer twice. Kept teaching until she was 73 because she loved those kids more than retirement. She never quit, and here I was, about to quit on her legacy because I was scared and broke and cornered. I set the pen down. Monday morning, 6:47 a.m., I still hadn't signed. The settlement deadline was 5 p.m. I had 10 hours to either surrender or find a miracle. I sat at my computer, exhausted, defeated, staring at a bank account that showed $847.32 and a calendar that showed no way forward. That's when the email arrived. Subject line: "You don't know me, but I know Jennifer." I didn't sleep that night. Just sat at my computer, staring at bank statements, trying to figure out how to survive losing $40,000 I didn't have. At 3:17 a.m., an email arrived. Subject line: "You don't know me, but I know Jennifer." I almost deleted it as spam, but something made me open it. Mr. Mitchell, my name is David Portman. I'm a civil engineer who worked with Jennifer Holbrook on a development project in Edison, New Jersey in 2019. What she's doing to you, she did to 3 property owners there. I have documentation. If you're interested in seeing how this pattern plays out, call me. A phone number followed. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes. Could be a trap. Could be Jennifer's team setting me up somehow. Or it could be the thing that saves me. I called. David answered on the second ring, voice rough with sleep. "You actually called. You said you have documentation." "I have everything. Emails, court records, depositions." Jennifer ran a scheme in Edison where she'd buy properties adjacent to disputed lots, hire Marcus Delaney, yes, the same surveyor, to create boundary errors, then pressure owners to settle or sell. She made over $2 million in 3 years before someone finally sued her for fraud. And she settled out of court, sealed records, moved here to start fresh. Why are you telling me this? Long pause. Because I was one of the property owners. She took my family's land. I couldn't afford to fight. I'm telling you because maybe you can. He sent me the files. 37 documents. Emails between Jennifer and Delaney discussing target properties. Court filings showing a pattern of intimidation. A deposition where Jennifer admitted under oath that she strategically acquired undervalued properties through boundary clarification. It was everything. I forwarded it all to Patricia at 4:06 a.m. with a subject line, "She's done this before." Patricia called at 7:30. "Ryan, where did you get this?" "Someone who survived her. This is prosecution-level evidence. If half of this is admissible, her lawsuit collapses. Hell, we could countersue for fraud and abuse of process." "Can we?" "I need to verify it first. But Ryan, if this is real, Jennifer's not just losing your case. She's facing potential disbarment for Delaney, sanctions, maybe even criminal charges. That afternoon, Patricia filed an emergency motion to dismiss Jennifer's summary judgment request and submitted the New Jersey documents as evidence of a pattern of fraudulent property claims. The judge scheduled a hearing for the following week. Jennifer's attorney called within 2 hours, voice tight. "We'd like to revisit settlement discussions." Patricia's response was ice cold. "No, Miss Chen, I think you're making a mistake. Your client has 48 hours to withdraw all claims, return all disputed property to Mr. Mitchell's control, and issue a written apology. After that, we're filing a countersuit for fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and abuse of process. We're also reporting Mr. Delaney to the State Licensing Board with evidence of surveying fraud across multiple jurisdictions. Silence. "We'll be in touch," the attorney said, and hung up. That night, I slept for the first time in weeks. The hearing was supposed to be procedural, a simple motion review, in and out in 30 minutes. Instead, it became a public execution broadcast across Chapel Hill's legal community. Judge Margaret Tomlinson's courtroom was packed, not just with the usual attorneys and court staff, but with reporters who'd caught wind of the story, neighbors who'd heard rumors, and even 2 law students from UNC who'd stumbled onto the case while researching property fraud. Jennifer sat at the defense table in a charcoal suit that looked like it had been tailored specifically for this moment, projecting confidence, authority, victimhood all at once. Her attorney, Richard Westbrook of Westbrook & Associates, was a man whose entire demeanor suggested expensive coffee and even more expensive hourly rates. He sat stiffly beside her, flipping through folders like a magician searching for a trick that would somehow save this disaster. Marcus Delaney sat 2 rows back, looking like a man who just realized he'd bet his entire career on the wrong horse. His usually slicked back hair was disheveled, his expensive boots scuffed. Patricia entered like she owned the room. Navy suit, minimal jewelry, leather briefcase worn smooth from years of use. She sat up at our table with the calm efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times and won most of them. "All rise," the bailiff called. Judge Tomlinson entered. Late 60s, silver hair pulled back, the kind of face that had seen every courtroom game and had exactly 0 patience for bullshit. She'd been a prosecutor for 20 years before being appointed to the bench. Her reputation was legendary, fair but ruthless, especially with lawyers who tried to waste her time. She settled into her chair, reviewed the case file briefly, then looked up. "This is case 24CV8847, Holbrook v. Mitchell. Motion for summary judgment. Miss Chen, I've reviewed your emergency filing and the extensive documentation you submitted. I have questions." Patricia stood. "Yes, Your Honor. These New Jersey cases, you're claiming Miss Holbrook has engaged in a pattern of fraudulent property acquisition spanning multiple years and multiple states?" "Yes, Your Honor." The evidence shows Westbrook jumped up. "Your Honor, I must object. These documents are inadmissible. They're from sealed settlements in another jurisdiction. There's been no finding of fraud. My client has never been convicted of any crime. This is a blatant attempt to prejudice the court." "Mr. Westbrook." Judge Tomlinson's voice could have cut glass. "I'll hear the evidence before deciding admissibility. Sit down." He sat. Patricia pulled up her first slide, a timeline showing 6 properties in Edison, New Jersey, all purchased by Jennifer between 2017 and 2021. "Your Honor, the pattern is clear. In each case, Miss Holbrook purchased a property adjacent to a lot with irregular boundaries. She then hired Marcus Delaney, the same surveyor involved in this case, to produce reports claiming the neighboring property encroached onto hers. She used these reports to pressure owners into selling at below market prices or signing over portions of land." Westbrook tried to object again. Judge Tomlinson silenced him with a look. "Continue," she said. Patricia pulled up email after email. Jennifer, to Delaney, "Target property shows promise. Elderly owner, likely to settle." Delaney, to Jennifer, "Survey complete. As discussed, I've adjusted the baseline to show favorable results." The courtroom went silent. "Your Honor," Patricia said, "these aren't legitimate boundary disputes. This is systematic fraud using corrupted surveying to manufacture property claims." Judge Tomlinson leaned forward. "Miss Chen, how did you obtain these emails?" "They were provided anonymously by a previous victim of this scheme. We verified authenticity through domain records and metadata analysis." "The emails originated from Miss Holbrook's registered business email and Mr. Delaney's professional account. We have the IP logs." Westbrook stood again, voice rising. "Your Honor, Anonymous sources, unverified documents. This is trial by ambush. We've had no opportunity to examine these materials. You've had 2 weeks since Miss Chen filed, Judge Tomlinson said coldly. Your client has had years to stop committing fraud. Sit down, Patricia continued. She pulled up Linda Kowalski's survey side by side with Delaney's. The differences were stark. Different baseline measurements, selective exclusion of GPS data, creative interpretation of historical boundaries. Your Honor, we asked Mr. Delaney to produce his field notes and raw data. He refused, claiming they were proprietary. Linda Kowalski, a surveyor with 20 years at the county level, reviewed his report. Her conclusion? It's fiction. The math doesn't work. The measurements don't align with any legitimate survey standard. She clicked to the next slide, a photo of Delaney's professional license, followed by a formal complaint filed with the North Carolina Board of Examiners for Engineers and Surveyors. We submitted this complaint 3 weeks ago. The board has opened a formal investigation. Mr. Delaney's license is currently under review. Delaney sank lower in his seat. Then Patricia did something I didn't expect. She called her first witness. Your Honor, I'd like to call David Portman to the stand. David walked to the witness box. Mid-40s, dressed in business casual, holding a folder. He was sworn in. Patricia approached. Mr. Portman, can you tell the court your connection to this case? I'm a civil engineer from Edison, New Jersey. In 2019, Jennifer Holbrook purchased a property adjacent to my family's land. She commissioned Marcus Delaney to survey the boundary. His report claimed we were encroaching on her property by nearly 15 feet. She sued us. My family couldn't afford to fight. We settled by selling her a portion of our land for $40,000. The land was later appraised at $180,000. And did you later discover evidence of fraud? Yes. During discovery in another case involving Miss Holbrook, emails surfaced showing she and Delaney had coordinated to target my property specifically. I wanted to reopen my case, but my settlement included a non-disclosure clause with severe financial penalties. Why are you testifying today? David looked directly at Jennifer. Because I can't let her do to someone else what she did to me. Mr. Mitchell is fighting. I didn't. Someone needs to stop her. Westbrook tried to cross-examine, but David didn't budge. His testimony was clear, detailed, damning. Then Patricia called her surprise witness, a county GIS analyst named Sarah Chen, who'd worked on the 2019 boundary recalibration Jennifer kept citing. Miss Chen, Miss Holbrook has claimed that the county's GIS update changed property boundaries. Is that accurate? No. The update refined mapping precision. It didn't change legal boundaries. All property lines remained exactly where they were according to recorded plats. So if someone claimed the 2019 update gave them additional land, they'd be lying. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Judge Tomlinson sat back in her chair, fingers steepled. Mr. Westbrook, does your client wish to testify? Westbrook and Jennifer had a hurried, whispered conversation. Her face was red, her hands clenched. No, Your Honor. Very well. Judge Tomlinson straightened. Mr. Delaney, stand up. Delaney stood shakily. You are a licensed professional surveyor in this state, correct? Yes, Your Honor. And you produced a report claiming Mr. Mitchell's property encroached on Mrs. Expect. Holbrook's land? Yes, but did you use the county's established GPS benchmarks? Pause. I used alternative reference points. Alternative. Meaning you ignored the official data and created your own baseline to produce a predetermined result? Your Honor, Miss Holbrook specifically requested, stop. Judge Tomlinson's voice was ice. You just admitted to producing a fraudulent survey at your client's request. I'm ordering the court reporter to provide a transcript of your testimony to the state licensing board immediately. Delaney went white. Judge Tomlinson turned to Jennifer. Miss Holbrook, stand. Jennifer stood, shaking. I have practiced law in this state for 42 years. I have seen property disputes, boundary disagreements, honest mistakes. This is not that. This is calculated, systematic harassment using fraudulent documentation and abuse of the legal system. You attempted to steal land from a man who inherited his family home. You hired a corrupt surveyor to manufacture false claims. You weaponized code enforcement and insurance companies to financially destroy your victim. And based on the evidence presented, you've done this before. Multiple times. Her voice rose. I am dismissing Miss Holbrook's lawsuit with prejudice. That means you cannot refile, ever. I am ordering you to remove all survey markers from Mr. Mitchell's property within 72 hours. I am ordering you to pay his attorney fees in full. Miss Chen, submit your final invoice within 30 days. She wasn't done. Furthermore, I am referring this case to the North Carolina State Bar for investigation of potential ethics violations by your attorney for bringing a frivolous claim supported by known fraudulent evidence. I am referring Miss Holbrook to the District Attorney's Office for potential criminal fraud charges, and I am issuing a permanent restraining order. Miss Holbrook, you are barred from contacting Mr. Entortice Mitchell, approaching his property, or interfering with his peaceful enjoyment of his land in any way. The gavel came down like a guillotine blade. This court is adjourned. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for the doors. Neighbors who'd attended started talking all at once. David Portman caught my eye and nodded a salute from one survivor to another. Jennifer sat frozen at the defense table, her carefully constructed empire of lies collapsing in real time around her. Westbrook gathered his materials and left without looking back. Patricia packed her briefcase, her professional mask slipping just enough to show a satisfied smile. That, she said quietly, was the most beautiful destruction I've ever witnessed. Outside, reporters swarmed. I gave a brief statement. I'm grateful to Judge Tomlinson, to Patricia Chen, to Linda Kowalski, and to David Portman for helping me defend my family's home. Property rights matter. Truth matters. And bullies need to be stopped. When I got home, the orange construction fence was already gone. Jennifer's crew had removed it within an hour of the judgment, probably terrified of additional contempt charges. The shed stood where it had always been, battered but intact. My land, my inheritance. My victory. That night, I sat on Caroline's porch with a beer and called my parents, told them everything. My mother cried. My father said, "Your aunt would be so proud." I think he was right. That night, David Portman called. I saw the news. You actually did it. You gave me the ammunition. No, you had the guts to use it. Most people don't. We talked for an hour. He told me about the other property owners from New Jersey who might now have grounds to reopen their cases, about the criminal investigation potentially opening into Delaney. You didn't just win your case, David said. You broke the whole operation. 3 weeks later, Jennifer's house went on the market. Motivated seller, the listing said. She was gone within a month. Marcus Delaney's license was suspended pending a full investigation. 6 other property owners in North Carolina came forward with similar complaints. The HOA oversight committee that had filed the code enforcement complaint disbanded after an audit revealed Jennifer had been funneling money through it to fund her legal harassment campaigns. I submitted Caroline's structures for grandfathered status. Approved in 4 days. My homeowner's insurance reinstated once the lawsuit was dismissed. Linda Kowalski sent me an invoice with a handwritten note. Drinks on you next time. You earned it. Patricia's final bill was substantial but manageable, especially after Jennifer's court-ordered payment came through. She'd fought for me when it seemed hopeless. I'd never forget that. 6 months after the hearing, the property is quiet again. A young family moved into Jennifer's house, a couple with 2 kids who baked cookies and waved from their porch. They asked about the property line within the first week. I showed them Linda's survey. They nodded and said, "Good enough for us. No disputes, no stakes, no games." I rebuilt the shed door that had been vandalized, reinforced it, installed better locks. It still smells like Caroline's workshop sawdust and linseed oil and 30 years of patient craftsmanship. The garden produced tomatoes, peppers, squash. I gave half to the neighbors. They brought me zucchini bread in return. That's how neighborhoods are supposed to work. One Saturday afternoon, I installed a small brass plaque on the shed's doorframe. It reads, Caroline Mitchell Workshop, established 1993, defended 2025. That evening, I sat on the porch with a beer and watched fireflies drift through the backyard. The property line was exactly where it should be. The land was mine, earned twice over, once by inheritance and once by refusing to surrender. Sometimes integrity isn't about being right. Sometimes it's about refusing to let someone gaslight you into believing you're wrong. Jennifer had tried to take everything using fear, money, and a corrupt system. She'd almost won, but almost isn't the same as actually winning. And in the end, the land remembers who fought for it.